pretty clearly these pictures, images coming out of California and Oregon are horrific. What can we do on a federal level to try to make sure that in the future we don't see this type of devastation?
Well, there are a number of things. Let me start with what I've been doing since March, which is being in touch with FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, to talk about the plan that we needed to have in place, knowing these wildfires were predictable. So back in March, I started those conversations, mostly because of my concern that when you couple the predictable wildfires that we've been having in the last few years with now this year, COVID and the pandemic, we needed to have a plan in place for evacuations and for also making sure that we're giving people the right information about how they can be safe, especially when we're talking about air quality being at an all-time low coupled with a virus that attacks the respiratory system. So that's some of the work that I've been doing. And then moving forward, we've got to make sure that people have and families have access to emergency relief in terms of a number of things that are about what we're doing as an office and what my office is doing to help people with assistance with the Small Business Administration emergency relief, what we can do in helping people with disaster unemployment coverage. And so that's the work that I've been doing to make sure that Californians have access to what we can provide them at the federal level during this awful crisis.
If you talk to CAL FIRE, they'll tell you that fires are hotter, these winds are blowing faster, we're in drier conditions. In Washington, do you think that there's a level of apathy toward climate change? And maybe is that contributing to inaction?
Well, I mean, it's no secret that there are people, especially in this administration, who have been climate deniers, who have been rejecting the science. But you know, people are suffering, and we can't play politics with this. The reality is that we're looking at climate fires. That's what we're calling it now, climate fires. We are in California experiencing, in the 170-year history of our state, some of the most extreme fires that we've ever experienced. We have the 5 largest wildfires that we've ever had in just the last 4 years in California. So we can't deny the science. And you look at extreme weather around the country, what happens that hits the Gulf Coast. And people are dying and being evacuated from their homes. You know, I was there in Paradise when the embers were still smoldering. I was there at evacuation centers during those wildfires, seeing firsthand what is happening right now, which is that people are panicked, they're displaced, they're losing their homes. Our firefighters and first responders, I mean, my brother-in-law is a firefighter in California. And what they're doing to try and save communities and save families, people cannot any longer, in the interest of what is morally right and in the interest of humanity, people have got to stop denying the science. This stuff is real, and we need to deal with it so that we can be on the front end of minimizing the harm and the danger.
Do you find it hard to be balancing your duties as a senator of the state that at this point is literally on fire with your duties running for vice president?
No, I mean, listen, my first priority is always going to be doing the job that I have, which is being a United States Senator. And that means in this arena, making sure that my constituents and that the people of our state have all the resources they need. And that's why we have been connecting people with federal disaster relief, why we've been connecting people with unemployment disaster relief, because these are the things people need right now. This is why, as early as March of this year, I was on FEMA and all of these folks saying, this is predictable, it's gonna happen, what's your plan? You guys need to come up with a plan. And of course, on a regular basis, being in touch with the governor and other leaders in our state to make sure that I'm doing everything I can to make sure the federal government is doing what it should do to support California.
You brought up COVID. I want to ask you what does a COVID response look like under a Biden-Harris administration, different from what we're seeing right now?
Well, first of all, we're not going to lie to the American people. And what we know now is that Donald Trump knew in January, had a full briefing on the seriousness of it, so much so that in a conversation in February, which was tape recorded, he knew fully understood that it will cause people to die. He fully understood. Back in January when he was briefed and in February when he talked about it, that it was airborne. But yet, throughout the beginning phases of this virus, when a real leader would have, knowing that, taken control, he was telling people it was a hoax. He was suggesting people shouldn't wear masks. He was suggesting that it's a partisan issue of whether or not you wear a mask, knowing that this thing is airborne and can kill people. Joe Biden and I are committed to embracing science, to making sure that public health professionals are leading the way, and that we will not play politics with this. That's why we are committed to having a national plan for testing, for contact tracing, for treatment, and God willing, as soon as possible, we will get a vaccine, and that will be safe and effective. And Joe Biden and I will make sure it gets to the folks who need it. Again, without politics, without bureaucracy, and without the gamesmanship and the games that Donald Trump has been playing with the American people in their lives.
All right, Senator, I do have a public safety question.
No, we
for
have
you.
time for one more question.
Okay, thank you. In your 2009 book, you did say that more police officers on the streets would be something you'd support. More recently, you said that healthy communities, affluent suburbs, have fewer officers but have investment in things like education and things like home ownership. So I'm wondering if in communities where there has not been that investment, parts of Oakland where you are from and parts of Detroit where I'm from, yes or no, do you think fewer officers would make those communities more safe?
Here's what I know to be a fact. In upper middle class suburbia in America, you don't see the kind of police presence that you see in other communities. But what you do see are well-funded public schools. What you do see are high rates of home ownership. What you do see are small businesses that have access to capital. What you do see are families that have jobs that allow them to get to the end of the month without worrying about whether they can feed their children. And Joe and I are committed to making sure that we help communities be healthy, because healthy communities are safe communities. That's why our plan includes over $100 billion investing in the small businesses and access to capital and entrepreneurs. That's why our plan is about Title I funding for public schools, to put more resources into our public schools.
And Senator, with all due respect, I know certain communities are not going to have that investment.
Home ownership with a $15,000 tax credit so that first-time home buyers can buy a home, which is the greatest source of wealth for most American families.
Senator, I know that there are some communities, though, that we do need to invest more in, and that is going to take time. So it's going to take a number of years. In the interim, do you think that law enforcement presence in those communities should be reduced in any way?
Listen, I'm always going to be, and so is Joe, always going to be supportive of the need that we all have to make sure that there will be police officers on the beat when a woman is raped or a child is molested or one human being kills another human being. But this, let's not present a false choice to say you either do that or you invest in healthy communities. We need to invest in communities.